We can get further together than trying to trip each other.
Technology itself is changing, and I saw that somebody's talking about putting a data center in orbit, right? Like in outer space. Is there a future where we're doing data destruction on the moon, right?
Whenever I'm broaching documentation with somebody that's new or maybe has been doing it for a very long time, I remind them that you cannot write good documentation without empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the audience that you're writing for. If you can't do that, then you're not going to write good documentation.
Anybody, I would think, in your shoes likes to say to vendors like myself, hey, I just want the easy button that does everything. I used to, in a former life, I do have a rap album that exists, like a hip hop album.
I love that.
In a system that's stress.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Zero State Podcast, episode 5 here from WipeOS. Very excited today to have Jesus Ortiz from AER Worldwide with us. Been really a great partner with this. I mean, that's the term we like to use around here for our clients and our users of WipeOS. You know, it certainly is a partnership relationship and trying to always make sure we're doing everything we can to help. So as we go through this today, I'm excited about really getting Jesus's feedback and experience from us. But with that said, I guess I'll kind of turn it over to you, Mr. Ortiz, if you want to introduce yourself and kind of explain who you are with the organization, a little bit about your background so we know who we're talking to.
Of course. As mentioned, my name is Jesus Ortiz. I've been with AER Worldwide for about 14 years. My background is in hardware engineering and on-site services, kind of like break fix. I have some experience in that. Our relationship with WipeOS has been ongoing for a few years now, and we've utilized WipeOS from developing new services for our on-site customers to changing the way that we process material at AER due to the ease of use.
I am thankful to have you here, and I always appreciate the communication we have. Again, this is one of those topics or spaces that sometimes, you know, humans do what we do best, so we can really complicate things and make things kind of difficult, even for simple things like testing and wiping devices that, you know, should be really straightforward. But of course, there's always some nuances, some unique challenges. And like you said, I mean, you guys have done a great job of kind of helping us in navigating some new things and doing things differently. So I guess I'll ask you kind of the first question here is really around that same topic. I mean, when it comes to that feedback loop and that conversation, I mean, from your side of things, you know, how important is it for you as a vendor and working with us or any solutions like this? I mean, how valuable, I guess, is it to get that feedback, to be able to have that communication with your vendors?
It's extremely important, especially in an industry like an ITAD or an e-waste company. Like AER, we're constantly looking for and working with extremely large companies that have very specific requirements for how they want to handle their chain of custody, data security, information sanitization. And so as an ITAD or an e-waste processor, we have to be extremely flexible while still being rigorously compliant to our certifications. Yeah, in order to do that, we have to have constant communication with our vendors when new challenges come up or, you know, the certification changes as they often do. Then we need to be ready to handle that and tell our customers, hey, it doesn't matter what happens with the certification, we are prepared to adapt. We're highly flexible. We can do whatever it is you want us to do while still guaranteeing the safety of your security or the security of your data, the safety of your appliances.
Yeah. And I think what was really always interesting with working with you and your team over these years has been just, you know, the different inputs or kind of viewpoints from, you know, at different times, snapshots where the company kind of had a way of doing things that, of course, I know you have been very involved in kind of not only monitoring, but also updating, you know, policies and procedures and making sure things are being done in a smart way. And I think that's one thing that I've always appreciated about the relationship with you guys is, you know, it is one of those topics where, yeah, it's nice to think about set it, forget it with software and that is a part of what can happen. But it also is something that if you're not constantly reviewing things or trying to improve things, it's just not going to get better on its own. So I don't know if you have maybe off the top of your head, but I'll ask you this. I mean, is there kind of one of the things that we've helped you guys with, or maybe a specific change or configuration that we've done that really did help you guys with that helped improve your workflow?
I think when we were first exploring WipeOS and we were looking for a PXC solution primarily. This was, we were coming from Tabernus, if you can recall that software.
Yes.
Purchased by our friends at Blanco. We were looking for something similar. Tabernus's downside, unfortunately, was how complicated the server side was to set up. With you guys, we didn't have any of those issues because your appliances are all-encompassing and self-serving. So it allowed us to really strip down a lot of our existing infrastructure and streamline and reclaim that space for more production. So yeah, I think the biggest impact that we've had with working with you guys is we've literally been able to double our production space. Wow. Because of the speed of WipeOS and also the space we were able to reclaim because of the size of the appliances.
Man, it's one of those things, when you're having conversations day to day about certain topics, and really the appliance is one that, we forget the advantages of it because we're dealing with it every day and it's kind of business as usual. And of course, it's a lot louder through the megaphone when someone has, a challenge with having an appliance device in their environment and some of those things that we are addressing and making some other options outside or in addition to the appliance setup. But it's really nice to get that reminder and that feedback from you of the value of it, because that was very intentional from the beginning. We knew, others out there had fairly just complicated setups and things. And it was like, here, let's just make this the easy button, and ease of use has always been a good intention. So that actually is a good kind of reminder of how valuable that's been for you guys and how that really worked. I haven't thought about much the physical space of it either. So that's a really neat point to make. So I guess just a little curious about that. So prior to, you basically had your own servers or a bunch of devices sort of set up that took up literally a bunch of space on your bench, or how was that kind of done?
Yeah, I mean, we had servers that would serve the PXC clients, and also if we had to run, so that was only for diagnostic, right? If we had to run data sanitization, it was pull out the drives, decaddy, recaddy, throw them in an array, wipe them, so we were able to rid ourselves. So we've doubled our production because of speed. We don't no longer have to remove drives. And also that would have been an issue further down the line. At the time, Apple still had removable drives. Now, not only Apple, but other manufacturers have moved to soldered on storage. So that it would have been an issue in the long run. But we never got to it because, like I said, it was all in one.
Another question I kind of have here is, I'm curious if you guys have really taken that out of house or on site, and if you can tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, we've used WipeOS appliances internationally for our customers and our friends in Europe that didn't have any kind of solution that we could use or piggyback off of. So we were able to take one of our boxes because of the size, throw it into your check bag or whatever, get over there, plug it in, and you're good to go. There was really no limitations that we found. I don't even think we had to communicate with you guys that we're taking it overseas because it was just plug and play. Like, we got to a customer site, plugged it in, we were able to start wiping.
I love it. And this is one of those challenges in a good way that we have, right? Like, it's rare that we hear about when things just go so smooth. I mean, there's no reason to tell us about it, right? Everything went smoothly. There's no tickets opened, any sort of questions asked. And it's so funny because, obviously from my chair, it's always the squeaky wheel that gets a lot more of the attention. So when somebody does go on site, and maybe, to be honest, typically they just haven't prepared for what they're walking into, or you get there and it's a bunch of things you weren't anticipating, right? There's no power available. There's all kinds of other, physical, logistical challenges that have to be if you're doing it right, and I have to assume you guys have been, since we haven't heard too many challenges that you've bumped into on these projects. But if you're not fully prepared or you don't do any due diligence, it is a tricky process. I mean, I definitely am always trying to make it clear with WipeOS that the software is great. It's a simple solution and all of that, but there's still the real world around it. And there's things that users kind of have to do to be prepared, which it sounds like you guys do a great job of. So beyond that, going back to some of the conversation around the support piece of this, I mean, I'm always learning from you and our users in general. And I think I've gotten pretty experienced and pretty comfortable with, the tools like we have here with meeting on an online platform, being able to screen share and show examples of things. As far as the ways we communicate and some of the things, I mean, are you finding it easy to work with in the communication side? Are there things that, I mean, you've seen that we do, I guess, differently than others as far as just the communication piece of it? I mean, tell me about, I guess, for you and your team, is it something that works really well? Are there still things we could work on? I mean, I'm just kind of curious about the actual communication on the support side.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It's something that I did want to bring up. One of the strengths that I think sets AER apart, and also I see mirrored in WipeOS, is the ability to not lose sight of your customers' expectations and their experience when interacting with you as a company or you as a service, whatever you're providing. WipeOS is like from their GUI to how tickets are handled, the ease of which we can communicate on a daily basis if needed, if we're facing an issue, really communicates to us that despite your growth, you haven't lost sight of what we expect from you guys. And it's part of the due diligence, as you mentioned. Other companies that show up unprepared, it's because maybe their expectations weren't the same as what their customers' expectations of them were. And so then you have issues with miscommunication or throughput, which we haven't had while we work together, because our visions are aligned. And part of that is constant communicating where if our expectations shift, communicating that to you, like this is something that we are now going to require. What do we need to do to facilitate the change? And that's been, I mean, we've had moments where we've been, communicating at all hours of the night, and we've gotten responses. So yeah, it's been pretty happy with that.
And I say it this way too. We're in the trenches with our users, and that's a great example, because there are those projects or there are those times where things just don't go as planned, and it doesn't matter that you did your diligence to sort of plan it all, but it's got to get done. And I always do say, that the support piece of WipeOS is really having the gentlemen that are building this and maintaining it on the other end all day, every day, and even different hours if need be. And I think that's it's one of the things that now is part of our culture, I guess. It's really built into things where even when we build in conventionally trained, developers or people from other larger organizations, they're always kind of impressed and surprised by the way we've structured that feedback and the way we're open to really trying to have the communication between developers and users, which, to me, this is kind of all I know in my software world. I haven't been all over the planet in different companies, so it makes sense. It's kind of just the way things should be. But I know we are unique in the sense of being able to make it a priority and put literally the developers in touch with users at basically any time. So it is an important thing. I think it's definitely how we've gotten our reputation a bit. And those in ITAD and the ITAD world, I think, certainly know that, are aware that we do things this way. But it is kind of one of those other things that when you present solutions to someone new to this, a lot of solutions out there advertise great support and service, but you never know until you work with them. So it is good to kind of get that feedback from Jesus, and I appreciate that. So, a little bit more in the collaboration side of this. I mean, I know along the way we've had different configurations and different workflows, and I feel like what's kind of fun to reflect on this a little bit is it all kind of happens as needed from our side, and things come up and we work with you through it. I think there's been interesting ways that we've set things up kind of in our portal and some of our reporting. So in the time that you've worked with us, I mean, I know it's all kind of smaller pieces of a bigger puzzle, but is there really a workflow piece or the support piece or one thing that you could kind of say stands out as always making things better for you guys?
I think it circles back to acknowledgement and implementation of feedback. I've had multiple ideas in the past that I've run by you, and I've never gotten, we can't do that. I've gotten, yes, we can do that. Here's the SOW. The option, I love that the option is there for like, I have this crazy idea for this workflow. I think it could work. Let's get it quoted out and see how that gels with the money people.
You know what's great about that? And sorry, I'm interrupting you a little bit, but when we're doing some of our roadmap stuff, so we try to incorporate the feature requests and the conversations and score these things and be smart about it. And it was a lot of your requests that sort of bubbled up, and it was like, oh yeah, we did ask for this input and feedback, and you did provide it exactly as we, requested. And it's great to kind of see that later in a different setting when we're all sitting around the table, so to speak, trying to sort of roadmap and prioritize things. And again, it's your input that is clear and valuable that really helps us to go, oh yeah, not only did it make sense between you and I, and of course, I'm always excited about any new shiny object in a lot of ways, but for the developers to kind of plug in and go, oh yeah, those ahas are priceless to me. I wish I could kind of share them more easily with you, but it is like, I'm so thankful to be able to get the input from you, have that communicate to the team. And it's not just like, hey, Josh and Jesus came up with the thing. It's like, oh yeah, yes, this makes sense. Let's do it. And it's just, I don't know why that's so rewarding, but it just like, you're like, okay, smart people came together and we're all agreeing on like, we can improve something. It's just great,
Yeah, I think one of the examples of that from really early on, we had talked about when we were first starting business together. I asked about validation, and it wasn't a thing that existed yet. And then later on in one of the revisions, it came forward, and I was like, oh, I didn't even have to pay for this. we got validation. So yeah, I can see how an idea that we had some time ago eventually makes its way into the base offering for the suite, and that's really gratifying. It does, as a consumer, it does make it feel like there is someone listening, though it may not be implemented as fast as we'd like it to. It could be, but eventually it will. If it's a good idea, it'll make it in. Yes,
man. No, it is. Like I said, that's a good example too, because the verification one was one that we hesitated on for a long time. R2 had its guidance. We kind of, weren't sure, and we did make sure to work through the authors of R2 and communicate with them to get some, solidify our understanding, because it was just kind of brief the way they mentioned how that was. And it's a good guidance, and they've improved on it and different things. But to have, again, your feedback and others really helped to kind of hone in on that and go, okay, this third-party verification is just a separate user. And if we put some steps in place to put some rails on that, now we have this as a very much easier to follow, tool and workflow. And that's actually been a big one. And it's still one of those features that I'm sometimes puzzled with a little bit, because there's a lot of loose ends for the user to have, their business practices kind of determine what percentage of drives they're running verification on and different things. And so it's still an interesting one, because it's sometimes it's nice to have, some clarity, some certainty in these things. And it's one of those features that we kind of say, well, it's here. You can verify all the drives you want, or you could verify very few. And, there's different business guidance on how that's done. But it's been a very big feature for us. And I think, again, it's still one of those that, especially again in the ITAD world, it's a tricky subject, and it still has a lot of kind of gray areas. But at least on our part, it's there. It can work. And as long as the users on the other end, like yourself, have a good understanding of what they need as a business requirement, it's great. I'm kind of already thinking towards the future a bit. It's getting towards the end of the year here, and we're back at road mapping. We've had a lot of interesting we had an interesting year around the halls of WipeOS. It was just one of those, try a lot of different new things, then come back to what works well. So kind of turning that back to you, Jesus, in the kind of coming months, years, or year, I mean, are there some things that you see coming or some things that you are anticipating that we'll be able to help you with? I know we've got some of your feedback for the roadmap things and some of the feature requests. Those are still in motion, but is there anything kind of top of mind as far as looking to the future that you would see for us and working with you?
I mean, we have ongoing conversations about the future. It's, I think, something we can both agree on. It's the volatility of our industry makes it really difficult to plan out features or services offered. We're kind of at the whim of our clients' needs, right? So, and by extension, you're at the whim of the ITAD's needs. They're constantly evolving. I think just being able to stay lightweight, flexible, and open to these challenges. It actually touches back on the verification portion that you mentioned. It's it's not a perfect solution because the guidance isn't perfect, and it can't be because of the industry. So we build solutions and we try to handle things to the best of our ability, even if it's incomplete, because that's just where the industry is right now. And then, when it gets further solidified, our planning and our execution also mirrors that and becomes a little bit more formalized. I remember, 10 years ago, at least on our section of the industry, it was all about hard drives. We're wiping tens of thousands of drives. Now it's shifted. Now it's closer to like laptops and mobile devices. So yeah, it's 10 years ago, I would have told you, the future is continuing to be hard drives because I can't see this slowing down, but
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, I love it. And this is one just that kind of touches on that. It's funny timing because, again, looking to the future and thinking about different roadmaps and things. And there's, of course, the AI conversation and what's that going to mean for storage. And then there's technology itself is changing. And I saw that, I don't know if it's Microsoft, but somebody's talking about putting a data center in orbit, right? Like in outer space. So there's, I would never anticipated that. And I don't know how realistic it is. It probably is just clickbait article, but at the same time, it's like, well, is there a future where we're doing data destruction on the moon, right? And maybe we got to work with SpaceX to get out there. I'm not sure, but it is, there are changes coming. And I agree. I think when we got into this, it was very loud, the erasure piece of this. And it's part of how I've always kind of presented WipeOS, obviously with the name, the wiping part's assumed or understood, and we have that, but it's all of these other features and workflows and the things, again, that your input and users like you have literally helped us build WipeOS to have diagnostics features, the verification, the imaging, these things that aren't necessarily useful to every user, but the ones that do need it, get a lot of use out of it. And I think the ability to certify erasure, I mean, we kind of keep coming back to that because it is such a easy to understand and simple need. It's not just a nice to have, right? You got to do this stuff. Data has to be erased by somebody at some point, and a certificate has to be there. It's just, it's a must. And so, having the additional features and workflows and things around that, I guess it gives me a good peace of mind that, again, we're always adding value. This isn't something that's just, and it can happen in software, right? I mean, I have tools I use in software that I pay for and then forget about and then find out later I shouldn't have been paying for them, and that whole scenario. And I one thing I definitely appreciate about our system is, it is a ongoing win-win. If you're not using WipeOS, we're not getting paid, right? And if you are using it and consuming licenses and things, we're in that fight with you. So it's a nice way to make sure we're working together and doing the things that need to get done. So, but yeah, as we kind of look to the future of these things, I mean, I'm with you. I predict that a lot of the value of WipeOS will start to shift maybe away from just the erasure. We've talked about even different names and slogans and things, because I think this will become a tool. And I hope it continues to be just almost a general tool and relationship that we can say, hey, when you're coming across devices, what can we do to help? How do we make this better? So I guess that would be maybe one of my last questions for you is, beyond the erasure side, I mean, with the diagnostics, with some of these other features, the verification and some of these things, I mean, is there anything, how do I want to word this? Another way to put it is I'm looking towards, and this is maybe a little more personal in my guidance, but I'm looking towards ways to try to have WipeOS potentially show more value of assets as a, reuse focused solution, and saying, hey, don't just wipe the drive, but be sure to resell it because it's $1,000 drive in the secondary market. I mean, are things like that things that you're thinking about, or are there things, again, kind of looking to the future that are outside erasure that you think WipeOS can help with?
Yeah, I think collaboration is closer in our future for both of us. There's certainly companies that specialize in services that we don't necessarily touch very often. Same for WipeOS, like ERPs all over, already starting to bring in AI to do the exact same thing, like try to look for value in the data entry stage of whatever process. I think a collaboration between ERPs and WipeOS, not beyond just integration, but on further, whatever that looks like, could be extremely beneficial for ITADs to be able to say, my ERP now comes preloaded with the ability to do X and Y with WipeOS, and we just have to pay, the licenses. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny? I'm definitely having those conversations. So I'm at least, and we're in line once again, and it's good. I mean, and that's where, it's funny because anybody I would think in your shoes likes to say to vendors like myself, hey, I just want the easy button that does everything. I don't want to think about it too much. I don't want to have different solutions for different things. And I think now that's starting to make more sense, like going into this next year. But prior to this time in history, that's not a really great question to ask, because there's solutions that are experts and really good in certain areas, and then they're going to be sort of weak in others. And I think you're right. The collaboration is where this thing kind of forms together, and all these solutions tie together, so much so that it is just, one Voltron, one big amoeba, so to speak, of all these things. But comes with a lot of challenges. I mean, I know when we've talked about that in the halls over here, I mean, it starts with some of the frameworks from the very beginning. We're a Linux-based solution, and others are Windows. And you're right, it's not just integration, but it's also how do those things talk to each other and work well? So for you, the user, it isn't bouncing from in and out of different solutions and moving around. So I think you're nailing the head. I mean, that's exactly what, we're putting some effort in. We have the relationships with a lot of these different companies, and it's been a better together sort of environment, with the integrations and things. But I think it really needs kind of that second phase of this, where it's really just, it is one solution, maybe with a couple components in there. So yeah, we'll keep working on that. I love that. I mean, it's again, it's funny because we've done this long enough now where I take for granted, the time and energy that developers have put into this. But then when we bump into somebody who may be thinking about starting an ERP or a data erasure, and it's just like, okay, well, you got a decade to get to where we're at, and it might be easier just to collaborate and work together than try to reinvent the wheel. So
yeah, if you need a hammer, you don't try to make one, you go purchase one, because somebody's already perfected the design, and you can get whatever you need to get wherever you need to get to quicker by collaborating.
Yeah. I love it, man. No, that's a good way to kind of wrap this up. I mean, I think, the main agenda I had with bringing you on today, and you've done a great job of it, is really just this collaboration that we have with our users first and foremost. I mean, this is really how we've built our solution and how we've made sure we're adding value to organizations like yours. And so it's really great to just get that genuine feedback, that this is working in this way. And again, you and your team have been technical and honest and very direct, which can make things sometimes kind of difficult, but that's the idea. It's how we get things done, right? So I certainly appreciate it. There's definitely a lot of work to be done in this space. I think I've noticed you guys and your organization are always, changing and doing things. So, I mean, on that note, what's in the the future cards for AER and anything kind of exciting going on that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly, so our mission is responsible and sustainable management, lowering our footprint, following the basic tenets of recycling, reducing, reusing, etc. In that vein, we've started to really expand our asset recovery and on-site services programs. Those are beneficial for the customer for lots of reasons, not having to worry about chain of custody because we'll take custody at their location, and having a safe depository for employees to return company equipment so that then it can be routed to wherever it needs to go. Those are, I think, areas that we're going to be looking to expand and grow. We already have a foothold, but expansion is always better. And if we can start pivoting towards that while still maintaining the ITAD side, I think that would be great. And collaborating with other vendors, subcontractors, etc., really lets us expand without stretching ourselves too thin.
Okay, great. Well, this has been another awesome episode of the Zero State Podcast. Jesus Ortiz, I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. AER Worldwide has been a great partner for us, and I'm excited to continue to work with you guys. And we're going to keep building on things and keep progressing. So thanks again. This has been a great episode, and we will see you all next time.